Okay. Well, we're gonna get started for today. Um, I do want to let you guys all know that we are recording the seminar, and it's going to be available on our UCANR as well as our Cooperative Extension website. So if this is something you're interested in accessing later, it will be available to you. Yeah, so I just want to thank everyone that's going to be joining us today for this first webinar. It's called Let's Get Started, Gardening in the Low Desert. My name is Christian Salgado, and I am a community education specialist at the Imperial County Cooperative Extension. And I work as a community education specialist as part of the Climate Smart Ag program. I will also have today joining me Shulami Shorter, and she is similar in my position, but she is up in Bakersfield, and she's our co-host today. So if you guys have any questions that might come up since you all are on mute, you'll be able to drop those questions in the chat, and she will be monitoring that. So if you have any questions, we'll address them all at the end. Oh, I'm so sorry. If you do raise your hand as well with any questions, I do see some people that are doing that. You will also, Shulami will be the person, my co-host, that will be responding to you. So hopefully that's okay. Let's see here. Okay. So let me make sure everything's doing good. Silence my phone. Okay. So the intent of our gardening webinar series is that they're going to be building on each other throughout the next 2 months. The first one is today in September. So I feel like right now is a great time if you are considering and planning to either start gardening or kind of revitalize your garden after the summer, if you haven't done any summer crops. So we hope that you're interested in attending all of them. If you're unable to attend, like I said, we are recording all our webinars and they will be available. And today's webinar's objective is to provide you with some basic gardening information. So I do know we have a very diverse group of participants today that have a variety of backgrounds in gardening. So some of you guys might have experienced gardening for decades, others might be new to gardening. So please be patient with me. This information is meant to kind of spark an interest in gardening, and the webinars to come, which will involve irrigation, pest management, livestock, those are going to be more in depth. Those are going to be very detailed presentations, and they'll be hosted by a handful of our advisors. So today when you leave, I hope you have a basic understanding of the social, emotional, and physical benefits of gardening, as well as provided you with some good resources of information on gardening in the low desert. So a key thing about today's presentation is just providing our community, Imperial County residents, with a good source, research-based information. Again, with housekeeping, if you have any questions, drop them in the chat and we'll hopefully address them towards the end. Okay. So before we get started and kind of jump into the meat and potatoes or the vegetables, the core of today's presentation, I wanted to provide you a little bit of background about the University of California Agricultural Natural Resources. So we are the entity that's hosting these webinars, and a lot of residents sometimes don't know who we are. Sometimes we go by the Cooperative Extension, not just UCANR. A lot of times we're known for our more popular programs such as 4-H and our Cowfish program and our Farm Smart program. So today, I just want to show you a really quick video that kind of explains a little bit about what is the Cooperative Extension, kind of how we came to be. There's a total of 64 Cooperative Extension offices all throughout California. And our office is located in Hopeville. So if anyone knows where that is, we're in 1050 East Holt Road. So we're kind of like in between the El Centro, Hopeville area. And we have professional advisors that focus on livestock, agronomy, sustainable agriculture, irrigation, as well as a nutrition, family, and consumer science advisor. And we also have sometimes a vegetable crop advisor, as well as our 4-H and other youth programs. So I'm going to play you a quick video that kind of explains what is UCANR in case you are not familiar with UCANR.
It started with a spark, a flash of inspiration. Create a system of public universities open to everyone, not just the elite. In California, that university was born on the shores of San Francisco Bay. Then came Mr. Lieber's radical idea to free the knowledge from the confines of the campus and bring practical, trusted research to the people. The first cooperative extension office opened in Humboldt County in 1913. And University of California scientists have been fanning out to communities across California ever since. As problem solvers, catalysts, collaborators, educators, and stewards of the land. Our advisors live in the communities they serve, working hand in hand with growers, ranchers, and families. The face of UC, linking the people of California to their great university. We work as teams, connecting local expertise. UC Berkeley, Davis, and Riverside, 9 research and extension centers, and statewide programs. Helping growers and ranchers with advice they can trust. Protecting plant health and the environment. Enhancing markets. Benefiting all Californians with increased food safety. From the Intermountain Wreck in the far north to the desert wreck near Calexico, scientists are at work on our research and extension centers. From discovering ways to use water efficiently, to field trials for fruit and vegetables that will make their way to dinner tables around the world. From the UC Master Gardeners' advice to grow by, to 4-H Grows True Leaders. Statewide programs focus on high priorities. Whether solving a pest problem with IPM, preserving nature's bounty with the master food preservers, rebuilding a cherished habitat with the California naturalists, or helping families eat better and move more with our nutrition educators. Our programs bring science-based solutions to everyday questions. Who does all this? We do. We are UCANR.
So I'm going to kind of just jump right back into our video on kind of what is the California Agriculture Natural Resources. You might have been familiar with the cooperative extension and the land grants and kind of how we came to fruition. But I always think it's a nice refresher. Sometimes I do think we're like this hidden gem in some of these parts of California, unless you're actively involved in agriculture or actively involved in a 4-H or farming. So I hope you guys enjoyed that video, and maybe you can get involved in the near future with many of these programs that occur all throughout California. So a little bit about myself. I thought I would kind of provide you with a little bit of my positionality, or kind of maybe curious, like, okay, why is this person qualified to talk to me about gardening? So I was raised in the city of Calexico, and I'm currently living in Calexico, so a longtime resident of this area. But over the past 8 or 9 years, I've lived in different parts of California. I'm very much a West Coast person. So when I attended San Diego State University about 10, almost 10 years ago, it feels like, I double majored in psychology and environmental studies with a minor in counseling and social change. I was very interested in focusing on both green spaces and human well-being. And it kind of brought me to this amazing place of working at small farms and community gardens located all throughout San Diego County. So that's really where I started getting my hands-on experience working with gardening. Here you can see me, I'm the one with the striped kind of like sweater in the corner, like listening to the person kind of. So I started off working like really small gardening plots. That one was like right smack in the center of the University of San Diego State. And at the time there was no community garden. So it was one of the first ones that was established, and now they have a couple, which is awesome. So that's kind of where, and during that time, I would also do a lot of back and forth in between Imperial County. There's a handful of small gardens that have come and gone over the years, community gardens, and I've worked on most of them, like a volunteer or putting on composting workshops. And like shortly after that, I moved up to Humboldt County, where I was there for about 3.5 years or so, where I received my master's degree at Humboldt State University as part of an interdisciplinary program called Environment in the Community, what was also this intersectionality between the social sciences and the physical sciences. And there's where I really got more experience gardening and kind of taking food down to farmers markets and food banks and kind of producing more commercial style type of food, which was very interesting for me. And yeah, so like all of this is kind of accumulated over the years. But one thing I could say, and I hope I want to leave you with, is that no matter kind of what your environment is, mine has changed so much over the years, whether I'm growing food in Northern California or a coastal area like San Diego or a low desert region like Imperial County. I've always been able to do it. Also, my space has changed so much. I've done growing tomatoes and herbs on balconies to having an actual backyard now and working on like a quarter acre or like different sizes. So no matter what your space is, I just want to leave you with that it is possible to kind of start, getting your hands in the dirt and kind of producing your own food. So no matter what space you're working with. So that's a little bit about me. I don't want to take too much time, but I always like to provide people a little bit about myself. So today's outline, so what are we going to be covering today? Well, today we're really going to go over the benefits of home gardening. Why should you start gardening? Also kind of really hit on growing food in Imperial County. Imperial County is an extremely unique place. I continue to be completely in awe of Imperial County's ability to produce food, and based on just our geographic location, our access to water, the climate that we have is quite unique compared to other areas. Even our growing season is different from other areas. And then we're gonna kind of go into the planning a garden. So before you can even think about actually physically going out into your backyard and starting to dig and prep soil and stuff, you kind of want to start thinking about how do you design a garden, or what type of environment do you have, and what to grow and when to grow it. So today's is very basic, it's very introductory. And I just want to leave you, I'm probably going to leave you with more questions than answers, but the intent of that is that when you attend our other webinars, you'll have a lot of those questions answered. So I hope you're able to take that away. But please, the questions are all intentional. So what are the benefits of home gardening? So here are just a few, but the benefits from home gardening are just so much. It's so vast of what you can gain from growing your own food. Definitely there's so much benefits to both your mind and your body. So when it comes to gardening, it promotes health and well-being. And how does it do that? So research has shown that adults and children who garden eat more vegetables. So that's just, and also it increases the diversity of the types of fruits and vegetables that they eat. I know in my experience, I taste so many different varieties of Brussels sprouts and broccoli and those other types of winter crops that I could possibly never really find in my local grocery store. So your diversity. Also, certain types of peppers in the summer season. So you definitely get to diversify your diet and what you can eat. Also, it increases your mental and physical health. Um, Research has shown that increasing physical activity will reduce the effects of chronic health conditions such as arthritis, depression, cardiovascular disease, dementia, and diabetes. So this is something no matter what age you are, if you're, still a child, adult, mid, in the middle of your life, or if you're part of more of our elder community, I feel like there's so many benefits that come with just being physically active, and you can modify your garden to fit your needs as well. um, I for one, I mean, doing row crops and broad forking, or I mean, depends on what type of physical activity you want to involve yourself in. Also, just being in a green space. There's so much research that covers the health that comes from just being mindful in a green space and taking in, all those aspects of nature. You will learn so much. For those who are new to gardening, you'll interact with so many insects, and you'll interact with just, you just completely transform your look wherever you're gardening. Um, so your green spaces, and you become these explorers, and you become these experts of your own garden, which is amazing. And another thing I wanted to highlight is it improves food security. So we've had some really great research studies that have really focused on and cost savings. So actually, I'll take a quick step back. So what do I mean by food security? So it means like all people at all times have a physical, social, and economic access to sufficient, safe, nutritious food that meets their food preferences and dietary needs. So, um, we do have a portion of the Imperial County community that would be considered a food insecure. So by, having these gardens, whether they're small gardens or community garden plots, there is a cost savings to it. So the National Garden Association has reported that backyard gardeners produce between half a pound to about a ninth of a pound of vegetables per square foot. So a medium-sized home garden plot is about 200 feet. So a typical garden could produce 180 pounds of vegetables. At a savings of $2 a pound, you're talking about $360 in one growing season. If you are one of our experienced gardeners that joined us, I'm sure and if you have a lot of maybe even tree crops, I know sometimes I harvest so much of a certain crop that's thriving in my backyard that I end up having to just give it away or preserve it in some way. So the cost savings of just growing one type of plant or two is research has shown does allow for cost savings and increases access. There's something great about just being able to go into your backyard and pick a squash or pick what you have and kind of prepare that food versus having to maybe go to a grocery store, or like I said, there's not a lot of variety in our grocery store. So you might grow a type of tomato that you might never find in the store. Okay, so so now that we're kind of moving along to like growing food in Imperial County, and I had mentioned Imperial County, if you're a longtime resident here, you probably have a good sense of the type of climate you're going to be growing your food in. But Imperial County has a winter that is mild and dry with a maximum temperature of about 65 to 75 degrees Fahrenheit. So we have this climate over the winter that's quite ideal for growing a lot of those leafy greens and brassicas, like broccoli and stuff that a lot of other parts of California and the United States, because they're struggling with the winter season or snow and rain, can't grow these. Like we have this amazing climate over the winter to grow food. In our summers, they're a lot more extreme. We have heat in the summer, so we're talking about a maximum temperature between 104 and 115 degrees. So growing food here is completely possible over the summer. I myself prefer growing over the summer. Those are some of my favorite things to eat. They grow in the summer climate. But just gotta keep in mind of what kind of temperatures you're going to be working with. We also have, you're probably wondering, well, I look around and I see so many fields and they're green for the most part of the year. How does that happen? We're in a desert and it doesn't rain very much. We only get about 3 inches of rain, and it usually comes during like the beginning of the summer. We kind of like a little monsoon period, or in the winter, so like midwinter. So I'm sure if you're a local here and you've gone to the fair, usually that's the time where you see rain again. So how is it that we grow food? And that has to do with the Colorado River. So the Colorado River is definitely the lifeblood of Imperial County. It's our only source of water for irrigation and domestic use in major cities in Imperial County. Without this water, the entire agriculture in Imperial Valley would vanish. So it's really important that everyone who's gardening knows kind of where your water is coming from. And I would imagine if you're local, you know it's the Colorado River. And it travels to us over 80-mile long, like all American canals. So all of it is through canals, and mostly through gravity type of canal connections throughout our valley. So that's where your water will be coming from. For when you start kind of thinking about gardening and locations, the USDA has a hardiness zone. So that's kind of where what kind of temperature zone you're going to be growing your food. So we're considered 10A, and this is according to the USDA, so the United States Department of Agriculture. So when you're thinking about what type of crops you want to grow, or fruits and vegetables and plants, you kind of want to make sure that they're a plant that can kind of fit this type of climate and this area, depending if it's going to be a summer or a winter. I kind of touched on this already, but there's like 2 distinct growing seasons. Around like late October, maybe beginning September, runs all the way till February. You have your winter crop kind of season, where like, the sun is low and days are shorter. But then, in the summer, we have a second growing season, which is March through August. And everyone's backyard or front yard or wherever you're growing will eventually become its own unique possible microclimate. If you have a great mesquite tree that provides shelter, you'll get some really great peppers that won't be impacted by, direct sunlight. So it's really about playing with your environment and becoming an expert at the space that you're growing your food. So I know it's 10:27, but we started a little late, so we might run a little bit after 10:30, but hopefully you can all still stay with us. So planting a garden, like I said, I was going to leave you with way more questions than I was going to be with answers. So now that you're kind of thinking, and September is a great time to start thinking about this, is what type of space are you planning on working with this year? Do you have the time and the space and the resources to maybe do a couple of row crops in your backyard? Are you gonna consider doing a raised bed? Really, you have to think about, what type of space you want to work with. Another part of that is, what is the sun and shade exposure in your area? Some plants like to have, kind of maybe shorter sun exposure, and other ones want to be, absorbing that sun, and they can take in the heat even over like the winter. So one thing that I would consider doing is, depending on what your space is your garden a north-facing garden? Is it a south-facing garden? Kind of take a piece of paper or go out and observe, like, where's the sun going to be hitting early morning? Where's that sun going to be midday? Where's that sun going to be at the end of the day? Because it'll make so much difference if you kind of think about these things early on. I myself, as someone who kind of just jumped into gardening years ago, I have made the mistake of putting a plant that would have done better in one space in another space. or planting it near another plant that ended up like shading out the sun when it would have done so much better if it had gotten more direct sunlight. So here on the little corner here, I have a picture. It's kind of how I've mapped out my own garden. I sometimes have plants that carry on from one season to the next. I also personally I like to harvest seeds, so I allow for really long gardening seasons that sometimes go for like 8 months. So I would recommend, and a lot of other gardening guides recommend, just taking out a piece of paper and kind of jotting down, where your sun is, where's your location. Those are great ways to decide what you're going to grow. Another really important question is access to water. If you will be doing, and our irrigation presentation will go into this in depth, but if you are going to be hand watering, you don't want to make sure that that spout or wherever your water is you're kind of maybe broke near that. So you kind of have to weigh everything. It's like this spot is good for me, or if you're doing pots, even if you're going to do some types of like small pots or containers, you might want to put them in an area they get like really great sunlight, early morning, midday, but at the end of the day, you don't want the sun, kind of hitting them so much, and also easy to water because all of those things matter. So like I said, when you come with planning your garden, you want to kind of take these questions into consideration, especially when you're thinking about what type of seeds. So we'll talk a little bit more about that as we continue going on. But access to water, that's something that's super important, because I've seen people like plant a garden somewhere and then they're having to like carry water, or they're having to, the hose doesn't reach, or so it's really important to kind of think about that. For those who are going to be, or even for those who will be doing containers, but another thing to really consider is preparing your soil. And soil, without a good soil, it really doesn't matter how much sun and water. It's really important that you carefully amend and take your time. So right now, we're September the 9th, and you want to give your soil some time too. So I would say anywhere within the next 3 weeks to maybe a month, it would be the time to kind of dedicate to just thinking about not only your space, your location, but how are you going to prepare your soil, or clear up that space. So if you're already gardening, you probably do a bunch of weeding or a bunch of, because if it's been left alone over the summer, and kind of, revitalizing that soil for the next growing season. Just to kind of provide you with some basics, soil is made up of a mixture of sand, silt, and clay. Ideally, gardeners would like to have loam type of soil, which is a 40-40-20 type of breakdown. There is some areas in Imperial County, I know maybe more towards like I would say more like the eastern, northern part, possibly. I could be wrong, but I feel like in the Hopeville area, you do get that loam soil. For those who grow carrots, the carrots love the loam soil. I'm growing in Calexico, so I actually have to really work really hard in transforming clay soil into that, rich type of soil. So, because too much clay, it's wet and the roots don't do very good. So, something you can consider just kind of going out and doing a very basic, soil test. And I will be providing you with resources after this workshop. A couple of UCN are handouts about gardening basics, and they can walk you through activities of how to go out into your backyard and kind of identify what type of soil that you have. Another thing to consider as you start to mend and work your soil is the three components that really help a plant to thrive. So one of those is a nitrogen. It's the part that makes the plant's leaf like very green, the leaves and all of that part. That's the nitrogen. Also, we have phosphorus, which is for more root development, and potassium, which is like overall kind of helps. And all of these parts and components work together to keep your plant healthy. So like I said, today is very basic, but the handouts I'll be providing will really go in depth, and you can kind of start working on these parts of your preparing for your garden. Also preparing your garden, what type of tools you have. So here in this image, he's just raking it, but you might want to maybe have a broad fork. If you're doing a raised bed, you might need to fill it up and have just a hand type of tool. So it really is up to you what type of environment you're going to be working with. So what to grow and when to grow it. So Imperial County Cooperative Extension has our vegetable planting calendar for home gardens, and I will be emailing all you this resource in addition with the other handouts. But before you kind of look through it and you kind of see, I really ask everyone to think about, what do you like to eat? Because if you don't really like to eat a certain thing, or maybe you're interested in trying to cook or learn something new about you might end up growing something that just doesn't really serve you too much. Sure, you might not be interested in caring for it. So I would really encourage you to kind of look down this list and what type of fruits and vegetables would you like to eat, and when the best time to use it. So this is a very simple guide that kind of explains when you want to put the seeds. If you're going to do a direct seeding, which means you'll just go outside, prep your soil, sprinkle the seeds, cover them in water. That's a direct seed. Or if you're going to take a different route, which most people like to do, I like transplants, because I can put out already like a 6-week old plant, and I can get produce quite quicker. So this is the schedule that you kind of want to follow, and it's very specific for home gardens in Imperial County. So everyone who joined today will get access to this. It'll be part of a follow-up email. But I would also encourage you to kind of do your own research and get other growing calendars. Yuma, Arizona has some growing calendars as part of their cooperative extension. Yuma, Arizona's climate is very similar for Imperial County, so you might gain some knowledge from that as well. But I won't be providing you with the University of California's resources, but I would use them as well. Also, when you either go into your gardening store or if you go into order seeds online, definitely look at kind of what are the things that plants need. So not that I'm making an advertisement, but there's some companies, seed companies, I think it's Johnny Seed, like they'll like really explain to you like what temperature for germination. So you can always cross-reference and be like, okay, well, I'm not going to just grow any broccoli, but I'm actually going to grow Imperial broccoli. And that's actually a variety of broccoli that I has thrived and grows very well here commercially, but it'll do very well for you in a backyard as well. So what to grow and when to grow it is also another key part of preparing. So let's see. So cool season, you'll see things growing like lettuce, spinach, broccoli, cauliflower. So for those who are going to be gardening this winter and kind of this fall, and then your warm season plants are tomatoes, squash, melons, peppers, things that can really handle the heat. But I do want to say there is outliers. I have met some gardeners who can get tomatoes year round here in the valley, who can get peppers here year round in the valley, and it really comes down to you becoming an expert in your gardening, like in your location in Imperial County, with access to the Colorado River and this beautiful sun that we get year round. There's so much you can grow. So at 10:38, I did take a little bit more time than I expected. That was just kind of my introductory. We are going to have a future webinar called Waterwise Gardening Water Management Practices, and that's going to go really in depth about the whole way of irrigating and watering. And then after that, by the time October the 7th comes around, we have our virtual garden kickoff. That's really going to be that workshop that's going to provide you with like you're already getting your hands in the soil and putting seeds in the ground. Today's webinar, I was just hoping to kind of maybe spark an interest and kind of get people excited and also start that planning. I, for one personally, I can spend hours planning out my growing season. What seeds am I going to purchase? What new soil amendments am I going to try? Or how am I going to plant? What am I going to plant next to each other so I know they can both grow healthy and thrive. So I would encourage you from here to the next webinar, really start thinking about all of those components of your growing location, and how you can slowly build your knowledge throughout all these webinars. So